My name is Susan, a 52-year-old office worker. My husband, John, has been bedridden for the past 7 years due to the after effects of a traffic accident. He's paralyzed from the waist down and cannot walk without a wheelchair. He was hit from behind while waiting at a traffic light in his car, and the other driver, who was also working, seemed to have fallen asleep at the wheel. When I got the call from his company and rushed to the hospital, John was conscious and could speak, but said he couldn't feel his legs. At that time, I couldn't even imagine that he would end up being bedridden. It was only when the doctor explained that he might be left with a disability in his lower body that I realized the severity of his condition. 2 months later, John's life, once he was discharged from the hospital, changed drastically. The biggest issue was using the restroom. Since he couldn't walk freely, even sitting on a portable toilet placed in the room was a struggle. However, my carefree husband lamented his immobility, but was happy about no longer needing to work. All the expenses were covered by the company of the person who hit him. He received workers' compensation, insurance payments, and a disability allowance. With that money, we remodeled his room, fitting it with a portable toilet and handrails. Now that I'll be getting disability payments, I can take it easy, he said. Our 20-year-old son, a college student, looked at his father, talking so lightly, and retorted with dismay, "Dad, are you sure you didn't crash into them yourself?" At his son's words, John got angry for real. That's absurd. To think my own son would say such a thing to a parent who's become so helpless. Though bedridden, John's upper body moved normally, and he could speak freely, often voicing his opinions strongly. John's life had changed, but so had more my burdens. He never did much housework before, and now that he couldn't move, bathing him was a significant hard work. While I was at work, he would lay in bed, watching TV or videos on his smartphone. For lunch, he'd eat the bentos I prepared for him in bed. He goes to the hospital for rehabilitation once a week. Then I take him there and from the hospital, which I assist with, taking him there and back. He hates these rehab sessions and would whine like a child when it was time to go. I feel off today. Maybe we should skip the hospital. If you're feeling unwell, let's go to the hospital to get checked. You can do the rehab while we're there. Unable to argue back, John would reluctantly go. Even after we'd return, he'd spend some time grumbling about the doctor who took charge of his rehab. He doesn't need to be so harsh on me, who has disability in legs. He's just enjoying making me suffer. But the rehab was effective, and John's legs were regaining strength, although he was convinced it was all his own doing. After 7 years of this routine, it had begun to seem normal. The doctor said that his leg function had improved a lot, and he would be able to walk if he continued rehab and built up his muscles. John heard the same from the doctor, but he didn't seem to take delight in his recovery. "I'm fine as I am. I feel like I won't get any better than this." I thought he said such a thing just because he didn't want to work hard at rehab. Then one day, my sister called with a strange story. She works on delivering lunches, and said she saw a man who looked like John at one of her delivery stops. This John look-alike was limping as he walked, and his face was a spitting image. I laughed off my sister's story. "Are you sure it wasn't just someone who looks like him? There are plenty of old guys around who look like my husband. Haha." But my sister wasn't convinced and continued. "John has that crew-cut hairstyle, right? It's quite a rare style these days. Ever since the accident left him bedridden, John had his hair cut short for easy maintenance. Now it had grown out a bit, looking like an awkward crew cut. Indeed, my sister sees my husband regularly, so it's unlikely she'd mistake someone else for him. This is because when I'm too busy with work to make John's lunch, I ask her to deliver a bento for him." As unease began to settle in, my sister made a suggestion. "I have a pet monitor camera at home. How about I set it up for you?" It seems she's setting up a hidden camera. I thought it was unnecessary, but she insisted so strongly that I agreed. Truth be told, I'd had my own suspicions about my husband. His shoes, which he can't possibly wear out alone, were left out at the entrance. Normally, I would put them away in the shoe cupboard when I came back, and they should not be out. Moreover, my husband, who usually lounges in sweats, asked me to buy him stylish clothes. If I set a goal to recover enough to go out in stylish clothes, I'll be more motivated in rehab, he had said. I agreed and bought him the clothes, but occasionally I found them discarded on the floor, as if he'd tried them on. Typically, he hardly changes his clothes alone, if at all, so I've been helping him. Hearing my sister's story, I can't help but wonder if he's been changing into those clothes and going out. I arranged for my sister to install the hidden camera on a day when my husband was scheduled for rehab. Since my sister also has a key to our house to deliver the bentos, it was easy for her to set up the camera. I can check the camera's live feed on my smartphone, and it can record as well. Despite wanting to trust my husband, there were suspicions, and I wanted to know the truth. It didn't take long to find it out. 2 days after my sister installed the camera, I casually checked my smartphone at work to see how John was doing. And there he was, standing up by himself, getting dressed. His steps were wobbly, but he seemed excited as he stripped off his sweats and slipped into the stylish clothes. After dressing, he checked his appearance in the mirror, cared about his crew-cut hair, and left the room. Seeing this, I was shocked and couldn't focus on my work for the rest of the day. After everything I had done for John since his accident, the idea that he was sneaking out behind my back was unforgivable. During my lunch break, I called my sister to tell her about John's behavior. Just like you said, sis, John seems to be going out somewhere. He's been able to dress by himself all along and has been hiding it from me. While my sister consoled the frantic me, the thought of him visiting the woman's house my sister had mentioned filled me with anger and humiliation. Ever since the accident, I've been caring for John without a moment for myself. My sister, understanding my feelings over the phone, spoke kindly. Let's talk this over when we get a chance. We need to give your husband a piece of our minds. Her words helped calm me down a bit. Before hanging up, she pressed on an important point. Don't confront John yet. We need to let him think he's gotten away with it for the time being. Had it not been for her advice, I might have confronted my husband as soon as I got home. That night, when I returned, John was lying in bed, as if nothing had happened, watching TV. Remembering the sight of him getting dressed and leaving, rage bubbled up inside me, but I kept my composure. Still unaware he was being recorded, John continued to dress up and leave the house. Meanwhile, my sister took some time from her work to track his movements, catching him on her smartphone several times entering a young woman's house. About a month after the camera was installed, my sister and I met to plan how to punish John. I told him I had work, so we had much time until the evening to prepare our strategy. As we talked, we watched John on my phone, starting to change his clothes again, right in front of our eyes. Seeing he was getting ready to go out again today, he sat on the bed, fidgeting. Surely he hasn't invited his mistress to our home today, has he? It seemed unlikely, even for John, but it would certainly be easier for him, given his condition. Soon the sound of the doorbell rang, and John got up from the bed and began to walk slowly, without even a cane. I was on edge, thinking my sister's prediction might come true. But the next moment, a young woman entered John's room. The moment my sister saw the woman, she exclaimed, "That's her, the woman John has been with." My sister and I immediately left the cafe and ran towards my house. Although I was thankful that they had made the scene of my husband with his mistress for us, the suddenness of it all took me by surprise. When we checked the smartphone again in front of my house's entrance, a shocking scene was displayed. My husband and the woman were in a tight embrace. Seeing my husband, supposedly paralyzed from the waist down, embracing so intensely without noticing being watched, it was hard to believe his condition. My sister and I burst into the house and into my husband's room. Caught by surprise, my husband and his mistress remained embraced for a moment before hastily pulling apart. Apparently flustered, my husband stammered, "Oh, welcome back, you're home early." Addressing me politely, the young woman, his mistress, tried to flee the room, but my sister blocked her way. "We need to talk, so please stay right here." I confronted my husband, who was standing on his own. "So your legs are completely healed? I've been completely fooled." As I spoke, my husband melodramatically grabbed his legs and collapsed onto the bed. "No, it's not what you think. She's a masseuse, helping with my leg pain. It's better after her massages, but still hurts." The mistress nodded along, backing up his story. My sister, pointing to the hidden camera, scolded my husband. "Everything was caught on that camera. It didn't look much like a massage, did it?" Realizing the existence of the camera, my husband became defensive. "Installing a hidden camera is an invasion of privacy. This can't be used as evidence," he shouted with a vigor not expected from a bedridden man. But my sister showed him several photos. There was clear evidence of him entering a single-family home and being welcomed by the mistress, and another of him walking unaided from a taxi. Faced with the proof in the photos, my husband was silent, just staring at them. "Since when have you been able to walk?" Instead of my wordless husband, the mistress informed us. "About a year ago, John called me, saying he was getting better, and asked if I'd date him again." The phrase "date again" caught my attention, and I asked the mistress, "Were you involved with my husband before?" Resigned, she spilled everything. She had been involved with my husband, a co-worker, for about 10 years, but their affair had ended once because of the accident 7 years ago. However, once his legs had improved, my husband insisted they resume their relationship. For him, with disability payments coming in without working, and his mobility returning, he wanted to enjoy himself again. For the mistress, an old flame was familiar and comfortable. It was a win-win situation for them. That my husband had been fooling me, making me care for him while he had been unfaithful for over a decade, was just now coming to light. So much dedication for such an awful man. It was almost laughable. In my stunned silence, my sister lashed out at my husband. "John, you're the lowest of the low. Do you have any idea how hard this has been on Susan since your accident?" He couldn't say anything, just froze on the bed. The mistress, sensing she was no longer needed, said, "I'll be going now. I won't see him anymore, rest assured. He was always complaining of pains here and there, and it was quite a bother." I grabbed her hand as she tried to leave, and said, "I'd rather be rid of such a man too. Could you take him with you? Of course, you'll be paying alimony as well." My serious gaze must have frightened her, for she fled the house in a panic. Left behind, my husband, sensing my seriousness, pleaded with me. "I was wrong. I apologize. Please don't abandon me." My sister snorted. "Now that you're all healed up, you can live on your own, can't you?" I followed up, "Of course, we're getting a divorce, but you'll be also paying alimony." My husband, in a panic, jumped off the bed and bowed repeatedly in apology. He folded his legs, which supposedly didn't move, into a perfect kneel to show us. Indeed, his legs were already healed long ago. After that, I moved out and started living in an apartment. My son, a college student, had already moved out on his own, but he understood when I talked to him about the divorce. He would occasionally take care of his father in my stead, but had also become suspicious upon seeing his father stand up unexpectedly. However, he had never imagined his father would deceive me and engage in an affair, and he was furious when he learned of it. Since the divorce involved alimony, we brought in a lawyer, but the issue escalated even further. My husband, who had been receiving disability payments despite his recovery, now faced problems there too. He was required not only to pay my alimony, but also to return the disability payments. Although he hadn't worked since the accident, he had received a substantial insurance payout, so he had considerable assets. I was able to receive a fair settlement for the alimony and division of marital assets. The lawyer said that he would need to start working again, but he had been idle for 7 years. What could he possibly do now? He has brought it on himself, so he'll need to settle this himself. Now living alone, I enjoy the freedom I hadn't had for so long. My life had revolved around my husband, leaving little time for myself. I'm looking forward to regaining the time I lost over the 7 years of caregiving. It's also a joy that my son checks in on me now and then. I'm eager to watch my son continue to grow and become more dependable.